Without wasting any more time, let's move toward today's stories. My name is Arthur, and this happened during a time when I was working in Kentucky, American, because of my job. I had been posted there by my company. Like most guys, living away from home, I was trying to keep my expenses low, so I rented a room that I shared with two coworkers. One of them was named Jack, and the other was Michelle. Slowly, we became really good friends. Same office, same place to live, same routine, leaving early in the morning, coming back in the evening, eating dinner, and going to sleep. By the end of each week, it felt like life was just stuck between work and exhaustion. We had been planning for a long time to go somewhere on the weekend, but something always came up. Sometimes it was work, sometimes someone got sick, and sometimes we just didn't have enough money. But after a while, a person gets mentally tired, and that's exactly what started happening to us. Especially living in the mountains. Seeing beautiful views every day from far away makes you want to go out and explore. You want to get away from the noise, from the roads, from the pressure of the city. Around that time, we got to know a local guy at our office. He was from that area, knew the mountain roads well, and most importantly, he had a 4x4 vehicle. One day, during lunch, we casually mentioned that we wanted to go somewhere nice over the weekend, but we didn't know the routes well and didn't have a car. At first, he laughed it off, but then he said if we were serious, he could take us. However, he warned us not to underestimate traveling in the mountains at night. We thought he was just being cautious, like locals usually are, so we didn't take it too seriously. We got excited, made a plan, and decided on a route. We estimated it would take around 5 to 7 hours to reach our destination, and if we left at night, we could cover a lot of distance before morning. None of us had any idea that this night would completely change the direction of our lives. The night we left, all four of us were in a great mood. We packed light, just some water and snacks, and started our journey. The beginning of the trip was completely normal. The city lights slowly faded behind us, the roads became narrower, and the mountain curves increased. Inside the car, the atmosphere was typical for a group of friends, music playing, old stories being told, jokes being made. Jack talked the most, while Michelle was quieter, but when he laughed, he couldn't stop. I occasionally looked outside through the window. Nights in the mountains are different. Unlike city darkness, this kind of darkness feels alive, like something is standing there watching you from the side of the road. After about 2.5 hours, we were fully on the mountain route. There was almost no networks. Sometimes a signal would appear for a moment and then disappear. The driver was confident and experienced, but as the night went on, our mood slowly became more serious. It wasn't because of tiredness. It was because of the silence. No lights from houses, no sounds of other vehicles, not even dogs barking in the distance. Just the constant hum of the engine and the sound of tires on the road. Then, suddenly, something happened that we didn't think much about at the time. Something went under the car. It wasn't a huge impact, but enough for all of us to feel it, like the tires rolled over something hard, maybe a rock or wood. The car slowed for a moment. Jack immediately asked what that was. The driver, without slowing down, said it was probably just a rock, since small stones are common on those roads. I turned back to look, but there was nothing visible in the darkness. Michelle also glanced outside for a second and then shrugged it off. We didn't stop. If we had stopped at that moment, maybe we would have understood something. Or maybe not. But we didn't stop, and the journey continued. We kept driving for another hour, and the road became even more empty than before. Sharp turns came one after another, with a deep drop on one side and a line of trees on the other. The headlights only showed a small part of the road ahead, and beyond that was nothing but thick darkness. That was the moment I first noticed something had changed in the driver. At the beginning, he had been very confident, but now he had gone quiet. His eyes stayed fixed on the road, and he wasn't talking anymore. Around that time, we saw a faint light far ahead. It was very small, like a tiny dot glowing in the darkness. Jack noticed it first and said it might be a roadside tea place. That made sense to all of us. After such a long drive, the idea of finding tea, or even just another person, felt comforting. The driver also said it could be a small stop or a stall, since there were a few scattered places like that in the mountains. At that moment, we had no idea that we were about to follow something that might not have even been real. If it was real, it was something we couldn't understand. The car kept moving toward the light, but strangely, the distance never seemed to change. It didn't get closer, and it didn't get farther away. At first, we thought we would reach it after the next turn, then the next one, and then the next, but it never happened. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then maybe half an hour. The light stayed exactly where it was. That was the moment when the atmosphere inside the car changed completely. A strange silence took over. I checked the time, and it didn't make sense. Based on how long we had been driving, we should have reached that spot already. Jack said the same thing. Michelle, in a low voice, said that something didn't feel right. The driver slowed the car for the first time. He looked carefully at the road, then outside, and then said something that made my stomach tighten. He said the road looked familiar. I asked him what he meant, and he said it felt like we had already passed through this same part before. At first, I didn't take it seriously, but then something clicked in my mind. On the side of the road, there was a crooked tree with a thick branch that was half broken. I felt like I had seen that exact tree earlier. I told myself maybe trees like that were common in the mountains. But then we passed a small broken rocky edge, and I was almost sure we had already crossed that exact spot. Jack said out loud that it felt like we were going in circles. The mood inside the car changed instantly. The driver took out his phone and checked for a signal, but there was nothing. He tried to open the map, but without network, it wouldn't load properly. None of us had service. Losing network in the mountains wasn't unusual, but at that moment, even that normal problem started to feel dangerous. We didn't stop. Deep down, we still hoped that the next turn would clear everything up. But the next turn didn't change anything. The same light stayed ahead at the same distance, the same silence surrounded us. The same empty road stretched endlessly. Not a single person, not a single vehicle. Then finally, the driver spoke again, and this time there was clear fear in his voice. He said something was wrong, and that if we kept going like this, we might waste fuel and end up in serious trouble before morning. Hearing that made my chest feel tight, because this was the first time he sounded scared. We decided to pull the car over. There was a large tree slightly off the road, with enough space to stop. We parked the car there. As soon as the engine turned off, it felt like the entire world went silent at once. Until then, the sound of the engine had been with us, but now the silence surrounded us completely. It wasn't normal silence, it had weight to it. For a few moments, none of us even dared to step outside. The windows showed nothing but darkness. The headlights were off, so the only light came from the faint natural glow of the sky and that same distant light, still visible, still unmoving, almost like it was watching us. We started discussing what to do. Should we wait in the car until morning, or try driving in another direction, or should one of us go and check what that light actually was? The discussion didn't last long. The driver himself said he would go. He said he knew the area and could figure out if there was actually something ahead. If there was a place or people, he would come back quickly. We tried to stop him at first. It was late, and the atmosphere outside felt wrong. But at the same time, we were stuck with no network, an unknown road, and limited fuel. Sitting there didn't feel like a solution either. Eventually, we agreed. Before stepping out, he told us to keep the doors locked and said he wouldn't go far. If he found anything, he would return immediately. I checked the locks from inside. Jack looked out through the window. Michelle sat quietly, but his face clearly showed unease. The driver stepped out with a flashlight. For a few seconds, the beam lit up part of the road and the trees, then slowly moved farther away. We kept watching him. First, we could see his whole body, then only the light, and then nothing. After that, time seemed to stop. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15, maybe even more. At night, in the mountains, minutes feel like hours. Every few seconds, you check the time, look outside, and try to convince yourself it hasn't been long. But that night, time was passing, and he wasn't coming back. Jack started getting restless and said it had been too long. I tried to sound calm and said maybe he found something and was talking to someone. Michelle, for the first time, clearly said that this didn't feel right. The darkness outside was complete. We didn't even turn on the inside light, because for some reason, it felt like if we did, we would become more visible to whatever was outside. That fear didn't fully make sense, but in that situation, every small thought felt serious. More time passed, and Jack finally said he would go check. I immediately refused, and so did Michelle, but Jack wasn't the kind of person who could just sit and wait, especially when uncertainty kept growing. He suggested something instead. He wouldn't go forward, but he would go back along the road, maybe find another car, people, or even some sign of life. That sounded a bit more reasonable. Before opening the door, he said something that stayed in our minds the entire night. He said if someone came and knocked on the car, we should not open the door immediately. He told us that anyone could be out there at night. He said when he came back, he would knock exactly 2 times, and only then should we open the door. I asked what if he called out, and he said not to trust voices because the mountains can change how sound travels. He repeated that we should only open the door after 2 knocks. Then he stepped out, adjusted his jacket, looked back at us once, and started walking in the opposite direction. We watched him until he disappeared into the darkness, and just like that, we were left alone. After Jack disappeared into the darkness, the silence inside the car changed into something heavier. When we were 4, and even when we were 3, there was still a feeling that we were together and could handle whatever came. But now it was just me and Michelle, sitting in the middle of nowhere, and for the first time it truly felt like we were trapped. This wasn't just about being lost anymore. It felt like we didn't even understand what we were dealing with. I looked ahead through the windshield, and that same distant light was still there, faintly flickering. The strange thing was, when I focused on it, it looked still, but the moment I relaxed my eyes, it felt like it had slightly shifted. I tried to convince myself it was just my eyes playing tricks, maybe because of the darkness and exhaustion, but deep inside, it didn't feel that simple. Michelle was sitting next to me, breathing a bit heavier than usual. He carried a small device with him that helped him breathe when needed. After a while, he quietly asked if I thought the other 2 would come back. I didn't answer right away. I knew he wasn't just asking, he was looking for reassurance. I finally said they would come back, that the driver knew the roads, and Jack hadn't gone far. But honestly, I was saying it more to calm myself than him. A few more minutes passed. I checked my phone. Again, still no signal, and the battery was getting low, so I turned it off. I checked the locks, the doors, the windows again, even though I knew it wouldn't change anything. Sometimes, when you're scared, you just repeat the small things you can control. Then Michelle suddenly whispered that something moved outside. I immediately looked out the window. At first, I saw nothing. But on the right side, near where the road curved toward the trees, I thought I saw a shadow move for a brief second. It wasn't clear enough to say it was a person, but it wasn't slow enough to be just a tree either, just a quick movement. I stared harder, but nothing was there anymore. I told myself it could be a branch, but Michelle didn't respond. He adjusted his breathing device and took a deeper breath. His hands were shaking slightly. Time lost meaning. The night felt like it was stretching endlessly. I kept expecting something, some sound, some light, something to break the silence, but each passing moment only made things worse. When you sit in darkness for too long, your mind starts creating shapes and movements on its own. Sometimes I felt like someone was standing behind the car. Other times, it felt like something was leaning in from the side. But every time I looked carefully, there was nothing. Then we heard the first sound, a knock, just once, clear and close, like someone lightly tapped on the back door of the car with a finger or nail. My whole body froze for a second. Michelle grabbed my arm tightly, his fingers cold. We looked at each other, and both of us thought the same thing, Jack. I even moved my hand toward the door, but then I remembered what he had said. Only open after 2 knocks. My hand stopped. We both held our breath and waited. No second knock came. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe 20. Silence again. but now it wasn't the same silence. This one had something inside it, like something was out there, testing us. I whispered that we shouldn't open the door. Michel nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on it. Then the sound came again. Knock, knock, 2 times. But something about it felt wrong. Jack had said to Knox, but this didn't feel like a normal human knock. There was a strange gap between the 2 sounds, like something was swinging and hitting the door, then pulling back and hitting it again. Michel whispered that it had to be him, but I didn't respond, because I didn't know anymore. The sound came again, 1 knock, then after a pause, another. Not urgent, not loud, just steady, almost like something was lightly hitting the car again, and again, in a slow rhythm. Michel's breathing got faster. He grabbed his device. I tried to look outside, but from where the sound was coming, I couldn't see directly. The window had fogged up, and when I leaned to check the side mirror, all I could see was darkness. The knocking continued. I softly called Jack's name, but there was no response. Just a few seconds later, another knock. At that point, something inside me started to shift. If it was a person, why wouldn't it answer? If it was an animal, why would it hit the same door in such a pattern? If it was the wind, why was the rest of the car completely still? Every logical explanation I came up with fell apart almost immediately. Michel was getting worse. Sweat formed on his forehead, even though it was cold outside. My hands were freezing, but my body felt damp with sweat. That's what real fear does, takes control of you. Decided to try starting the car. At least the headlights would turn on, and maybe whatever was outside would move away. I turned the key. The engine made a heavy sound, but it didn't start. I tried again, same result. A 3rd time, nothing. Michel looked at me like I had just lost our last chance. I quickly said maybe the car was too cold, but even I didn't believe my own words. Then the sound came again, louder this time, closer. I gathered some courage and thought about lowering the window, slightly to hear better. But as soon as I reached for the button, Michel grabbed my hand tightly and told me not to. He said whatever it was, we shouldn't let it inside. I stopped. That was the moment I truly felt helpless. We were locked inside. Something was outside, and we had no way of knowing what it was. Suddenly, there was a faint scratching sound from the roof, like something slid across it. Then silence again. Then another knock on the door. It felt like whatever it was, it wasn't staying in one place anymore. Either it was moving around the car, or we were too scared to understand where the sounds were coming from. I kept remembering Jack's words only open after 2 knocks. The problem was, the knocks were happening, but not in a way that felt human. The difference was small, but clear enough that I couldn't bring myself to open the door. Michel's condition kept getting worse. He said his chest felt tight. I gave him water, but his hands were shaking so much that most of it spilled. He tried using his breathing device again, but it didn't help much. He kept looking at the door, then at me, then closing his eyes. I tried to distract him, saying we would just wait until morning, that once the sun came up, everything would be clear again. But the truth was, I had no idea how long the night would last. It felt like it would never end. The knocking continued, sometimes once, sometimes twice, sometimes after a long pause. Each time it happened, my heart felt like it jumped into my throat. I thought about looking outside many times, but every time I stopped myself, because I felt that if I saw whatever was out there, I might never forget it. And sometimes, even in danger, a person is more afraid of knowing the truth. At one point, Michel suddenly started crying. Not loudly, just tears running down his face, while he kept repeating that we should never have come here. I tried to calm him down, but my own hands weren't steady either. I don't even remember exactly when he went completely quiet. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe fear, or maybe his breathing problem got worse. One moment he was there with me, and the next, his head was resting against the seat, his eyes half closed. I couldn't tell if he had passed out or just fallen asleep. My own mind was starting to shut down too. Staying awake all night, the constant fear, and the pressure had slowed my thoughts. The last thing I clearly remember from that night was one final knock from outside, and after that, everything went blank. When I opened my eyes again, The first thing I noticed was light. It was morning. Not bright daylight, but enough to see shapes clearly. There were people outside the car. Several local men were standing around, and there were also 2 police officers. A police jeep was parked nearby. For a few seconds, I didn't understand what was happening. Then I remembered Ali. He was still next to me, his eyes open, but his body weak. I tried to open the door, but one of the officers told me to come out slowly. His voice was firm, but there was also something cautious in it. We stepped out of the car with difficulty. As soon as I stood outside, my legs felt weak. After sitting inside that car all night, even the morning air felt strange. But the atmosphere that morning was not normal either. The people standing around didn't look curious like they usually do after an accident. There was fear on their faces, and something else, something like shock, mixed with disgust. One of the officers quickly told us not to look behind and to move forward. I looked at him, confused. Why would he say that? He repeated it more strictly. But the truth is, when someone tells you not to look, your mind wants to look even more. I took a step forward, then turned my head slightly. What I saw is something I can never fully explain. A thick branch of that large tree we had parked near had a rope hanging from it, and on that rope, Jack was hanging. His body was not fully intact, and what remained was tied in such a way that it had been swinging slightly in the air. In that moment, everything connected in my mind, the knocking, the pauses, the uneven rhythm, that sound we had heard all night. It had been him hitting against the back door of the car as he moved with the wind. My mind shut down instantly. My body reacted before I could even process it. It felt like a loud noise filled my ears, like the ground moved beneath me, and everything in front of me became blurry. I remember taking a step back, someone trying to hold me, and then everything went dark again. When I regained consciousness, I was sitting on the side of the road. A police officer was sprinkling water on my face. Not far from me, Michelle was also being helped, but he was in much worse condition. His breathing was out of control, and they were trying to use his device. A local man was saying that he needed to be taken to a hospital immediately. I wanted to speak, but no words came out. My mind kept repeating the same sentence. He was hitting the door all night. The police took us away from there quickly. As we left, I didn't look at the tree again. I didn't have the strength. I also never found out what happened to the driver. Whether his body was found or not, I don't know. At that time, we were in such deep shock that we couldn't even process basic information. At the police station, they questioned us, where we came from, why we went there, what time we left, when we stopped the car, who went first, who went after, what we saw, what we heard. I told them everything I could remember, but there were moments where my mind went completely blank. Especially when I talked about the light. I explained how it stayed at the same distance the whole time. The officer listened carefully, wrote something down, but his expression made it seem like either he didn't believe me, or he had heard similar stories before, and wasn't surprised anymore. Michelle was taken to the hospital that same day. Later, I found out he had suffered a severe heart attack. He survived for some time, but mentally, he was never the same again. He had always had breathing issues, but what really got damaged that night was his mind. As for me, for a few days, I seemed normal from the outside. I ate, I talked, I acted like everything was fine. But inside, something had changed. Every time night came, my heartbeat would speed up. Even a small sound on a closed door would make my entire body shake. If I heard anything that sounded like something hitting a car, that night would come back instantly. I tried many times to explain it logically. Maybe someone had killed Jack and staged everything. Maybe the driver was also attacked. Maybe the light was just an illusion. I kept trying to find normal explanations, but 2 questions have stayed with me until today. The first is, what did we hit with the car at the beginning? If it was just a rock, how did that one moment start? Everything. And if it wasn't a rock, then what was it? The second question is, what was that light? If it was a place, why did we never reach it? If it was a vehicle, how did it stay at the same distance the entire time? And if it was just an illusion, how did all 4 of us see it the same way? I still don't have answers. I can't say for sure whether this was something done by a person, something else, or something beyond normal understanding. But one thing is certain, not all nights in the mountains are just dark. Some of them carry something that can break a person from the inside. Even now, years later, if I'm on a quiet road at night and I hear even a faint tapping sound, it feels like the blood in my body freezes. That was my story. I hope you will share it on your channel. My name is Daniel, and I live in a city near Houston, Texas. A while back, I had already shared another strange experience, and I truly believed that phase of my life was over. But what happened next proved I was wrong. Not far from my house, about a 5-minute drive, there was an old abandoned house. People in the neighborhood talked about it all the time. Everyone said no one could stay there peacefully for long. Right across from our place, there was a small shrine where an elderly man used to stay. His son and daughter-in-law eventually moved into that abandoned house. At first, everything seemed normal. But after a short time, people began hearing loud arguments from inside almost every day. Neighbors said something about that house changed people. The couple used to be calm and happy, but after moving in, they were always fighting. They had a young daughter, too quiet, innocent. One night, the girl got slightly sick. Nothing serious, just a mild fever. But the next morning, when they tried to wake her up, she was gone. What made it worse was what people said. They saw marks and strange bites across her body. The news spread quickly, and the entire neighborhood was shaken. Not long after that, the family left the house. Then another family moved in. For a few days, everything seemed fine again. But one evening, their daughter was taking a shower when she suddenly screamed and ran out. She was shaking, terrified. She kept saying there were 3 girls inside the bathroom with her. Her parents tried to calm her down, but after that, her behavior changed. At night, she would act strangely, sometimes sitting on her brother's chest while he slept, sometimes trying to choke him. It got so bad that one day her father brought in a religious man to help. A crowd gathered outside the house. Me and 4 of my friends were there too, standing near a window, trying to see what was happening inside. The girl was sitting on the floor. Her face looked pale and thin, her eyes sharp and unsettling. When the man asked her questions, sometimes she answered in her own voice, and sometimes in a deep, heavy voice that didn't sound human. He said there were 2 entities inside her. Her mother immediately said, but she told us there were 3 girls. The man turned to the girl and asked, "Where is the 3rd one?" Slowly, very slowly. The girl turned her head and looked directly toward our window. Then, in that same deep voice, she said, "She's right there." All of us froze. The next second, she started laughing. Not normal laughter. Something broken, unnatural. We didn't wait. All 5 of us ran. None of us looked back. Later, when they were taking her somewhere for treatment, we watched from a distance. Suddenly, she stopped walking, turned around, looked straight at us again, and let out a scream so sharp that one of my friends dropped his phone. Months later, we heard she had been taken to a rural area for treatment, but she didn't survive. After that, anyone who moved into that house left within days. That was just what happened in the neighborhood. The real thing happened to me not long after. One rainy season, me and 3 of my friends planned a road trip to a place in the mountains, something like a quiet getaway near the Appalachian region. One of my friends had a car, but I was the only one who could drive long distance. We left in the evening. The rain was heavy, so heavy that even the windshield wipers struggled to keep up. The road ahead was barely visible, so I followed behind a large truck just to use its lights as a guide. After a long drive, we stopped at a roadside diner to eat. When we got back on the road, my friend Jake said he needed to use the restroom. The area was empty, no buildings, no lights. I joked, "Man, at least ask for permission before you go out there." He laughed it off and went anyway. A while later, he came back, and we continued driving. Around 2 a.m., the rain got worse again. Another friend, Chris, suggested a shortcut. I decided to take it. Soon, we found ourselves on a narrow, muddy road, surrounded by dense forest. The others fell asleep. Only me and Sam were awake. Mud and rain covered the headlights, making it even harder to see. So I pulled over to the side. Sam said we should rest for a bit, and within minutes, he fell asleep too. I stayed awake, playing a game on my phone. Then I heard it. Daniel. I thought one of my friends had woken up, so I ignored it. A few seconds later, again clearer this time, Daniel. I froze. I immediately woke Sam up and asked him to check the back seat. He looked and said, "They're both asleep." My hands went cold. Before I could react, Jake suddenly sat up and screamed, "Daniel, stop the car." I hit the brakes. He jumped out and ran straight into the forest. Me and Sam looked at each other for a moment. Then I said, "Stay here. I'll go after him." I stepped into the darkness and followed. From deeper inside the forest, I could hear laughter. Strange, broken laughter. I found him sitting on a rock, head down, shoulders shaking like he was laughing. I walked closer. "Jake, what's wrong?" I grabbed his arm and started reciting whatever prayers I knew. Slowly he lifted his head. That wasn't Jake. His eyes were red. His teeth looked longer. There was a twisted smile on his face. My throat went dry. I asked, "What do you want from my friend?" The voice that came out wasn't his. "Not from you, from him." "What did he do?" "He ruined my food." My heart dropped. I realized it was about the place where Jake had gone earlier. "You should have asked properly," it said. "My children are hungry." Before I could respond, Sam shouted from the road, "Daniel." I turned for a second. When I looked back, Jake was gone. Just gone. And that's where everything got even worse. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at the empty rock. Just moments ago, Jake was sitting right in front of me, and now there was nothing. The rain was falling softly through the trees, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Sam kept calling my name from the road, his voice shaking. I forced myself to move and walked quickly back toward the car. The whole forest felt wrong. It wasn't quiet, there were sounds everywhere, but none of them made sense. Leaves moving without wind, faint footsteps that didn't belong to anyone I could see. When I got back, Sam was standing outside the car. His face looked pale. "What happened?" I asked. He stuttered, "Daniel, Ethan is gone." I didn't understand at first. "What do you mean gone?" "I mean he's not in the car." I immediately opened the back door. The seat was empty. Just minutes ago, he had been sleeping there. No door sound, no movement, nothing. That's when it hit me. We were in serious trouble. One friend missing in the woods, one acting not human, and another one gone without a trace. I told Sam everything I had just seen. As I spoke, I could see the fear growing in his eyes. "We need to leave," he said. "Right now, we can't leave them," I replied. "We have to find them." Before we could decide what to do next, we saw headlights in the distance. A large truck was coming down the muddy road. It slowed down and stopped near us. The driver stepped out. He was a middle-aged man, with a calm face and a short beard. There was something unusual about how calm he looked, like none of this surprised him. "What's going on?" he asked. We quickly explained everything. He listened without interrupting. No shock, no disbelief. Then he simply said, "All right, let's take a look." There was something about his tone that made us trust him. We took him to the spot where I had seen Jake sitting on the rock. He stood there quietly for a few moments, then walked back to his truck and returned with a small black bag. It was slightly open, and there was a strong smell coming from it like raw meat. He looked at us and said, "Start reciting whatever prayers you know. Don't stop, and whatever you see, don't panic." We nodded. As we walked forward together, I heard it again, "Daniel." This time, Sam heard it too. He grabbed my arm tightly. We all turned. At the same time, Jake was sitting on a thick tree branch above us. His legs were hanging down. His face was mostly hidden in shadow, but his eyes, they were glowing red. Something dark was dripping from his mouth. He was smiling. My legs felt weak. The driver calmly said, "Keep reading." Then he stepped forward, closer to Jake, and began reciting something in a low voice. I couldn't understand the words. After a few seconds, Jake's body jerked violently and then he jumped down. From that height, he should have been hurt, but he landed perfectly on his feet. The driver spoke. "What do you want from these boys?" Two voices came from Jake at the same time, one his own, one deep and rough. "He ruined my food." "It wasn't on purpose," the driver said. "They didn't know. My children are hungry." The scream that followed echoed through the trees. It didn't sound human at all. Sam was close to breaking down. Honestly, I wasn't far from it either. The driver placed the black bag on the ground. "Take this," he said. "Take the food. Let them go." Jake's body started shaking again, like something inside him was fighting. Then he looked straight at me and said, "I told him to stop. I told him to stop the car. If you had listened, I wouldn't have done this." A cold wave ran through my body. I remembered the voice before we stopped in the forest. That must have been it. The driver spoke again, firmer this time. "What's done is done. Let them go." There was a long silence. Then Sam suddenly shouted, "Where's Ethan?" Jake's head tilted slightly. "That one is not mine." The driver quickly said, "Help us, and you'll get more food." "Plenty." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Jake slowly closed his eyes. After a few seconds, in a normal, weak voice, he said, "Check your car." And then he collapsed to the ground. We rushed to him. He was unconscious, but alive. The driver didn't pick up the bag. He left it there. "Don't look back," he told us. "Just go to the car." We didn't argue. As we walked back, I started hearing sounds behind us, staring, chewing, something feeding. I didn't turn around, not even once. When we reached the car, I opened the back door. Ethan was there, sleeping like nothing had ever happened. I shook him awake. He rubbed his eyes and said, "What's going on? Are we there yet?" Me and Sam just stared at each other. The driver walked up to us and gave a small smile. "These things," he said, "they lie. They confuse you. They try to scare you. That's all they can do, lest you lose control." I asked him, "Who are you?" He replied, "Just a traveler. And sometimes, travelers have to help each other." He told us to follow his truck and not separate until we reached the main road. We agreed immediately. I started the car. Jake was still unconscious. Ethan remembered nothing. Sam kept quietly praying. We followed the truck. Slowly the rain started to ease. The sky began to lighten. Morning was coming. When we finally reached a populated area, the truck signaled and turned onto another road. We honked to thank him. He raised his hand without looking back and drove away. None of us spoke for a while. Then Ethan said, "Why are you guys so quiet?" No one answered. Later, when Jake woke up, he remembered nothing after using the restroom. We didn't tell him right away, but days later, when I finally did, he went silent for a long time. Then he said quietly, "I did see bones there." After that night, none of us ever took a deserted shortcut again, and I learned something I'll never forget. Not every empty place is truly empty. Sometimes, you're just a guest. And some mistakes are not easily forgiven. After that trip, things were never the same for us. For a few days, none of us talked about what happened. It was like everyone was trying to convince themselves it was just stress, just imagination, just a bad night. But deep down, we all knew it wasn't. Jake acted normal at first. He laughed, joked, went on with his routine, but sometimes, out of nowhere, he would go quiet. Like he was trying to remember something but couldn't. Ethan never remembered anything at all. To him, it was just a normal trip. He slept, and then he woke up. Sam changed the most. He became more serious. He stopped making jokes about things he used to laugh at. And he never let any of us take a remote road, again, especially at night. As for me, I kept replaying that night in my head. That voice calling my name. The moment Jake looked at me with those eyes. The sound behind us when we walked away. Like something feeding in the dark. And the thing that stayed with me the most. That sentence. "If you had stopped earlier." I still think about it, because before we turned into that forest road, I really did hear something. I ignored it. I thought it was nothing. Maybe that was the moment everything went wrong. Even now, when I'm driving late at night, and I hear even the smallest sound from outside the car, I freeze for a second. I don't open the door. I don't check. I just keep driving. Because some things are better left unseen, and some places are not meant for us. That's my story. If you ever find yourself on a lonely road, especially in the middle of nowhere, be careful where you stop. And if you hear something calling your name, make sure it's really meant for you.